All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to this afternoon's employee engagement seminar. Um, just making sure that the technology is working well. Right, some quick housekeeping. Please make sure that you have pen and paper with you. Notes for those of you who want to use digital devices. That's also a very good medium to use. And welcome. Thank you for being here on time. And I would love to honor your time by getting started. I'm Dr. Vishnu Durga. I'm with Action Coach Guyana. And with Action Coach Guyana, and I'm also a people development specialist. What does that mean? That means that I understand that there is no such thing as Action Coach Guyana, because Action Coach Guyana is a name, and a name by itself, even a name on a building, a name on paper doesn't do anything. It's the people who are part of the organization, the team that makes up the organization. Those are the people who really either have the organization do exceedingly well or exceedingly poorly. And if we understand then that we want to improve organizations, we're not improving the names. Yes, of course, you could do a name change, you could do a brand change, but we really do have to work with improving the people. And it's important to note that people don't change unless they want to. So do we know what motivates them? And that's why I'm here to talk to you today, to help you understand how employee engagement can really be improved in the workplace. I must tell you, I'm not a medical doctor. I am a doctor in management, and I specialize in entrepreneurship. Also come from an engineering background, so the technical side does come in very handy. And some of you may know I've headed many business support organizations, and I continue to serve on the boards of numerous business support organizations in Guyana. It is my absolute passion to really have productive people and productive organizations that add value so that we can really enable this prosperity that Guyana has been sitting on for such a long time. And I know this is a slow process, but we have to keep pushing, because if we want a better life for generations to come, it really does depend on us. So again, I would like to say thank you for those of you joining me in the Zoom room. Any questions, I'm going to ask you to type them into the chat box. For those of you who may be joining me somewhere on social media or maybe looking at this recording in the future, feel free to make a comment in the comment boxes, and I'm sure that one of our team members will be getting back to you. So let's see if we get a little bit of music and see what happens. We will be looking at 2020, and if you're like me, if you're like most people, not just in Guyana, but across the world, this is exactly what 2020 may have felt like to you. Like one big wave rushing and hitting down all of us, starting, with COVID, and then also in our situation, having us deal with an extended political impasse, which thankfully has been resolved now. So we're looking at how fast those employees, those public servants, get their act together and really start moving the organization forward as well. So maybe if they need some employee engagement, they also know where to find it. Now, the wave isn't over as yet, because across the world, COVID, for example, is still a big concern. We see many countries going back into some form of lockdown. In Guyana, it's actually quite a debate, with some people wanting us to go back into complete lockdown, and others understanding the impact that it would make on livelihoods. So it's a bit of a balance between social and economic. And again, it's a very, very tough debate to have, uh, especially since our country is not yet in a situation to provide support to those people who cannot earn otherwise if they have to stay at home. So still a lot to deal with as we're here in 2020, and 2020 has been quite a year, and we still have another 4 months to go. So let's hope that we don't get any other massive bad surprises. If it's a good surprise, fantastic. But I think we've had our fair share of surprises in 2020. Now, today I do want to talk to you about the new world of work. Maybe a couple of months ago, a year ago, you may not have been this familiar with video conferencing technology and attending webinars. We did a lot of this face to face. So this is a new scenario. We have many younger people also entering the workforce, and I keep seeing these disconnects between these generational gaps that exist, and how will we deal with that? Most of my team is working virtually. I'm sure that some of you are also working virtually. How do you raise that level of team engagement? I want to make sure that you understand our high performance plan that can help with moving things forward much faster. And I'll take you through the models, show you some case studies, and provide you with the opportunity as well to be an influencer in your world, in your organization. So ensure, as I mentioned before, ensure that you have a notepad and pen, even if you need to go old school, because I will be going at a relatively high pace, because I want to make sure you get enough out of this hour that we have together. And if you need any further input, please feel free to reach out. And our team is here to make sure that organizations and people become more productive to have better lives. At the end, if you have the hunger to really learn how all of this works, I do have some gifts for you. And then, yes, I said gifts, not just one gift. I'll have two gifts that I'll be able to give to you today, should you really want to take some serious action on the whole idea and the whole concept of employee engagement. So stick around to the end. Who's this for? Executives, owners of organization, middle managers, aspiring leaders as well. If you are really in the field of leadership and you want to learn how to better influence those around you, I think this is exactly the type of webinar that you need to be tuned into. And of course, coaches and consultants, anybody who works with people. Great, that's quite a broad definition. Let me make it a little bit more specific. Anyone who is serious about developing people is right now in the right place. Right now in the right place. So when we look at an organization, we find that many organizations are very heavily focused on the brain side of the organization. Are the systems in place, the processes in place? Do we have proper governance? What's happening with our products? And we neglect, in many cases, the hard side of the organization, which is the behaviors that people are displaying. What are the relationships like between people? Is leadership really displayed? What's the culture of the organization? And I'm sure that you can walk into organizations and you can feel the culture, right? You know when it's a happy, uplifted, progressive culture, and you know when it's a very toxic, disengaging culture. Unfortunately, most of the services offered don't focus that heavily on the hard side of business. We think, once we tell people what to do, they should do it, and we should hear nothing else. But I'm sure you hear all the complaints in your organizations of how they wish it was different and how they wish it was better and who does this and who does that. Those are hard problems. Now, with Action Coach, we have been really working on the brain side of businesses for the past 5 years. In November, it would actually be 6 years because we did officially start in November 2014. So we've been working for 6 years very heavily on the mind side, on the brain side of businesses, and with fantastic results. We have so many clients that continue to double every single year, year on year, and even in 2020. I was chatting with some of our clients, and some of them are still on track. And some of them are ahead of where they thought they would have been for 2020, looking to break records. And it's really joyful. It's why I continue to do what I do. It's why I'm not uh, lying around the pool relaxing, because this skill that I have worked 20 years at developing, I want to make sure as many people as possible get to benefit from these skills and get to develop their own skills. So when a company doubles in size, that company doesn't fire people, doesn't cut people's salaries, doesn't uh, hide from their taxes, doesn't hide from their obligations. When companies continue to grow, they hire better people, they pay more, they invest in training, they pay their taxes, they do stuff in the community. And I really love that. That really, really drives me. But what I've also noticed is that we could end up becoming human doings, right? And you know what a human doing is, right? Do this, do that, do this, do that. The whole life is just about doing things. And I remember, that we are human beings, and human beings have more than just a mind and a body. They have a heart and they have a spirit. And I'll teach you today as well what happens in an organization if the heart and the spirit really kicks in, if the heart of the business really starts pumping and sending that blood to the brain, and what can happen with the brain. Now, a lot of the principles that I will be teaching you today come from a fellow called Richard Maloney, an Australian sports athlete, the elite athlete. And when he retired out of sports, winning many, many championships, he actually started coaching other teams and numerous other teams across Australia on the techniques of really getting people's hearts and spirits into the game to really win. And what started happening is that the corporate world started to reach out to him to find out, okay, great, can you make these sports things work in the business field? And think about it, right? Aren't we all business athletes? If you are really good at what you do, right? You're not a Sunday cricketer. You're a professional cricketer, right? So you're not just an average business person or an average employee. You are an athlete. You're a business athlete. You're a professional athlete. Don't you need the best support as well? And that is exactly what Richard brought to the table. And he even released his latest book, Stress Free, which is how to thrive under pressure in unprecedented times. So I would ask you, take a look at Amazon, and the book Stress Free, really powerful if you want to really go deeper into the subject. Now, let's take a look at how organizations currently work. When somebody now enters an organization, they pretty much enter that organization like a sheep, right? And think about the first day you showed up at work. You showed up, you had to sit and wait, and somebody came and they said, okay, welcome. They take you around, they show you, they introduce you to different people and say, this is where you sit or this is where you work. And the key thing that you're doing at that point in time is trying to fit in. Trying to fit in, you don't know what the culture is like as yet, you don't know what the organization is like. And what quickly happens within a week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, after you have started to fit in, is when people actually start looking after themselves. Right? So they start making sure that they are safeguarded, that their spot in the organization is secured. And they don't always do that using the best means possible, right? Sometimes they sabotage other people. Sometimes they gossip about other people. Sometimes they don't provide the support that is needed to other people because it may make other people look good and not themselves. And in many, many organizations, the people who are in the organizations get stuck at the sheep level or at the me level. Very, very few people in the organization graduate to the we level when they start looking after each other, because they understand the concept of interdependence. That in order for me to prosper, you also need to prosper. That a rising tide lifts all boats. And this is what I want to really make sure that we get today. We have also, discovered, and Deloitte did a survey in 2016, that company training, in-house training, is actually the least desirable way to learn. Because in many cases, it's the same material that is repeated. People kind of go blind to it. And I'll give you a little bit of a scenario where if we say that, you're in this fishbowl, you're a fish in your organization, and things aren't going the way you need it, so it's very cloudy, and we take you out of your fishbowl and we drop you into a clean training environment, right? A beautiful, clean fishbowl. When you are in that training room, you see the world very clear. You know exactly what needs to happen. And you feel so excited. And then we send you back to your organization, back into the cloudy water. And God forbid if the training actually happened and it ended on a Friday, and then on a Monday you go back to work, you're shocked because how can I apply these fantastic things that I learned in training into this place where everybody else is doing their own thing or the old way of doing things? So that is what happens a lot with training. And many organizations also make the mistake of thinking that training is a one time per year kind of activity. So once in a year, they'll do a retreat where you'll have a guest speaker come in or a trainer come in for 2 hours. Now, if that actually worked, imagine if that actually worked, right? One time in the year, you get exposed to something and we expect it to be good for the year. Why don't we go to the gym like that? Why can't I just visit the gym once a year and I'll be fit for the entire year? It sounds silly, right? But that is exactly what organizations are doing. What they're doing is that they're making sure that they're sending people, and then they're not getting the results, and then they say training doesn't work. So do you actually have a training program? That's one. But don't expect a one-off to really make those big changes and those lasting changes. Now, what we do, the approach that we use is that we actually train people within the organization. And when we train people within the organization, they actually have to clean their own fishbowl. Right? And once they get that done, now there's space for growth because the things that used to be difficult in the past now get easily dealt with. And now there is so much more space for people to actually grow and develop and be more innovative. Right? And it does need to be done in the longer term. So definitely not another workshop or just profiling or information gathering. Those methods have proved to be old and slow. What we really want to look at is to create a globally engaged workforce. And how do we do that across the world? And you can see that Guyana is one of the latest countries added into Engage and Grow. And just, I would encourage you, Google Engage and Grow so that you can see the impact that this particular methodology is making. But it is really about having a group activation system. How do we get people to really understand the level of interdependence, even if it is in a digital platform, so that people understand that when they work together, when they understand each other better, the result is so much bigger. Now, it's easy to connect electronically, right? We have quite a lot of people in the Zoom room here right now, and it was easy to get here. But how do we really start impacting people emotionally? How do we understand that we really need to start overhauling the way we do leadership? That the things that don't make sense anymore, big offices, a lot of people. What if we now recognize that people could work from home and get the same level or higher level of productivity? Now we can actually have people from anywhere in the world working with us. Your accountant could be in Australia, your lawyer could be in Trinidad. It is really that much clearer now. And I do believe that we have reached somewhat of the healing stage. We're not in shock anymore. I would say like March and April. We now understand that there is a path that we have to follow in order to really not just get where we were, but take all these lessons that we've learned in the past 6 months and apply them. And people really want, what I've seen is that people really want to understand what's their purpose on life. Is their purpose just to go to work, get some money, spend it out, and go back home, or is there something bigger? Right? And I do believe that the heart will now rule. People do want to know, why are they with your organization? What are they connected to? Now, some things will change in the workplace, definitely less people. And I think we use the word social distancing, but I think physical distancing is a better description because, socially distant, I don't want anybody to be socially distant. We can continue to talk, albeit from a distance, so a physical distance. So scenarios like you're seeing on screen now may become the norm where you could actually you'll see markings on the floor of in order to keep you at a safe space, a safe distance. That's going to be something I've already seen technology where in your badges, you know your name tags, there will be a sensor, and if somebody comes within 6 feet, it starts beeping, single beeps, and if they come within 4 feet, it beeps continuously. So all that technology is already really coming to play. Now, things are going even faster. So it means that employee connection is even more critical at the moment. How will your environment be set up right now? How are you managing the time structures? Right? Because can you really, if you're an old school manager, you are used to looking to see on the floor if people are at your business for 8, right? And if they stay until 5. And maybe that was the criteria. But what if those people were playing solitaire from between 8 to 5? Is that really the right way to measure people? Or should we really look at the results that people are there to deliver? And then time becomes more irrelevant. If you think about mind health as well and team health, I think those are key areas. How are people coping now with being by themselves? With not having a supervisor there, with not having someone who can pop into their office and offer some assistance. Right? And I'm going to ask again, those of you any questions, please feel free to share. I did promise you that you're going to get quite a bit of information. So if you see something that you need more clarity on, just feel free to ask. You can ask me directly or as an open question. But the polls have shown that 90% of especially the young workforce, especially if they did not have a good induction process into the organization, are really having difficulties working remote. 75% feels less connected. They're slowly losing those relationships because if you don't talk to people on a regular basis, you don't find out what's going on with them. You start losing little bits and bits of that relationship. And then 66% actually feel less informed about what's going on within their company because the level of communication is not where it needs to be. More than half feel that it's really hard to get status updates, but also hard to give, because if you were in the same organization, the same place at the same time, it is so much easier to get those kind of updates, which now that is proving really, really difficult. Now, if we look at what's happening in an HR perspective, we can see that mental well-being is the number one concern. And I would actually venture to say, even without COVID, mental well-being in workplaces was already among the top concerns, because we focus heavily on serving our clients. We focus heavily on taking care of the outside world, of all these external stakeholders and partners and the bank and the suppliers. We miss and we don't put enough attention on the people inside the organization, taking care of them really well so that they can continue to deliver what is needed. So, the thing that we really need to be able to put forth is in order for people to be effective, they need to stay deeply connected to their work and the work of their teams. Because if we have someone who is disengaged, and I must thank my volunteer there, if someone is that disengaged and they show up to work and they basically behave in this manner, some of the behavior that you're going to end up with is that the organization will be less profitable. More health and safety issues, more theft, lower customer rating, lower productivity, a higher staff turnover. How long could you, if you were the manager of this portion here, and this is what you keep seeing, how long would you keep this portion employed without, really taking some action? And also less free time, right? If people don't get their work done, they have to keep at it until it's done, and then it starts bleeding over into your personal life. Now, again, we can see our model here of a highly engaged person. And when somebody is highly engaged, you actually have, and this is from Gallup, this particular poll, uh, there is actually a 10% higher customer metrics, from satisfaction to repeat. There's 17% higher productivity, generally 20% higher sales. People who are highly engaged, actually these companies end up with about 23% higher profitability according to Gallup. And it's just a happier and healthier environment to be in. Because we all have 24 hours, right? And if we were to say that, we sleep for 8, that's 1/3 of our life. We're at work for 1/3. So when we're awake, more than half of our awake time is not with our families. It is at work with the people that we have to be around with. So don't you want that to be a happier and healthier environment? Now, the question would be, what makes people the happiest? What makes people the happiest? And if you look at our team, this was our last, one of our last planning sessions. And yes, we had to do it virtually to make sure that we keep everyone safe. But what really makes people happiest is multiple and meaningful relationships. So if you haven't made a notice yet, please understand that the thing that makes people happiest are multiple, so more than one, and meaningful relationships. Just think about it. If you're in an organization and you only have, let's say, one friend or one person that you know well, or one person who shows some concern for you when something is happening with you, and you get an offer for, another job with a 10% increase, it's not a difficult choice, right? Especially if you have financial pressures as well. But if you have 4 or 5 people in the organization who know you well, you know them well, they express care, they help you, they grow you, and you get the 10% offer, that's a much harder decision for you to make, to leave the organization. Because you feel that you are in an environment that allows you to grow and develop and be among dependable and reliable persons. Now, around the world, the statistic is actually that just about 15% of the employed population is actively engaged. 15%. And that is something that should be very worrying, because we don't just pay 15% worth of salaries, right? We pay 100% of salaries. And you actually have the statistics here globally. So the combined is 15%. Right now, we're doing a lot of surveys across Guyana to figure out what are our numbers specifically for Guyana. So within a year, I think we will have sufficient information to also have the numbers for Guyana that we can publish. Now, let's take a look at the definitions that we'll be working with. So when somebody is highly disengaged, right, an employee that is highly disengaged actually does less than is expected. So if you go to their job description, if you take a look at their list of to-dos, this is the type of person that does less than what is expected of them. Someone who's just disengaged, they do just what's expected. If you tell them, move this bucket and put it here, or send this report by 4 o'clock, or call 2 people, that's exactly what they'll do. Don't expect anything else. That's a disengaged employee. So it's basically whatever you pay them as their salary, that's exactly what you get back. Right? And then we have people who are highly engaged. And these are the people who do more than is expected. And that is where really innovation, growth, profitability, productivity, that's where that comes from. Highly engaged people. And the role of this particular session is for you to understand this, and you might actually be thinking about the people that you're working with right now. And I can kind of sense it. Some of you are thinking, oh wait, I know who the reds are in my organization. I know who the yellows are. And of course you're a green, right? Because you're here on a Wednesday at 5 o'clock learning. So my assumption is that you're all green here, because in order for you to do more than is expected, you have to learn. And that is what learners do. Now, think about what this feels like. If your organization was a boat and you had about 10 people in that boat, 15% means 1.5 of your 10 people are actually rowing the boat, moving it in the right direction. Nearly 60% are just watching the view. And if you call on them to do something, they'll do it. And then what really harms organizations is the 20% or so. I think the statistics are around 20% that are actively disengaged. These people could actually be actively sabotaging the company. And it feels like they're throwing the anchor. So whilst you have some really pushing and moving the boat forward, you have some of them just dropping the anchor and doing as if they're not responsible for that. But that is what actually happens. And it costs the organization because, as I mentioned before, these are the factors that occur when you have highly disengaged people. Now, the problem with highly disengaged people is that 34% of their salary is actually wasted. And I do have a question that came in. Can a disengaged employee perform at the level of a highly engaged employee because of moral values learned at home or religious belief? Right? So if someone by definition is disengaged, it already means that they're doing less than is expected. It could be that in their at home or as you mentioned, religion, they might have been taught values that are very good values, so work hard, don't cheat, give when you can, all of that. But when they go into a culture that is very toxic, they very quickly let go of those values and they follow what everybody else does. I think just yesterday I had an interview where someone described the organization as a venomous, a pit of venomous vipers is the way the organization was described. A pit of venomous vipers, which means that the only thing this person would do is exactly what is needed because they don't want to get bitten by one of those venomous vipers. Because according to that person, everybody just takes care of themselves. And it would be very difficult for him to do anything different. And, it's a very tough place to be in when you actually have to have eyes at the back of your head in order to see if nobody's going to stab you in the back. And that's not a very healthy organization. And if you have to keep looking over your shoulder, you can't really be doing the work of the organization to the best of your ability, which means that whatever the organization is paying you, 34% of that value goes to waste. Right? So, as I mentioned, much higher level of profitability and higher customer metrics when it comes to people being engaged. And I'm going to ask that you make a note. You can even take a snapshot of the worksheet and by the way, I'm going to just make a note here as well. Anyone who wants to use the calculator, we actually have a calculator where you can go and you can actually do the calculations for your own organization, because I'm going to use some examples today. But if you go to the website actioninvest.org/engage, you will actually have access to this calculator. And all you need to do, and I'll take you through a couple of examples very quickly, is you put in your head count. Right? So how many employees do I have that are, how many people are employed by the organization? So for my example, I'm going to say we have 50 people employed. Now, globally, we know that the reds, the highly disengaged people in an organization, are about 18%. Right? So this says that if you have 50 people, it means that 9 out of your 50 people are actually highly disengaged in the red category. And we've been doing surveys, as I mentioned to you before, and in some cases, it's even higher than 18%. Even higher than 18%. The next thing you do is that you take the average gross salary per year. So in my example here, I've used 1.8 million, which is basically $150,000 per month. And this is the gross salary, not the take home of the staff, but the gross salary. So all you do is, and you can even take the average, right? Because in your organization, some people might be working for 100,000, some people working for 200,000. So the average, the middle part of the organization is about 150. And we've already worked out that the cost of disengagement is 34%. And I keep promising everyone that there was actually a local study done in Guyana by Professor Lucas over 13 years, where he actually came to the conclusion that in the public sector, every dollar invested in the public sector only got us 66 cents of productivity. So his statistics that he did for 13 years matches our statistics exactly. And I will put the slide. I just made a note here as well that I need to get his research and make a slide so that people can see that in Guyana, it's exactly that, right? We lose 34% of every dollar that we spend on salaries. So now we know that on average, if we pay somebody 1.8 million for the year, we've really lost $612,000 on that particular salary. And so what we do now is we take the number of disengaged employees and we multiply it by the number, the amount it cost us for this disengaged employee. And we can see that in an organization of 50 people, on average, we're losing about $5.5 million worth in salary because of disengagement. Right? So I hope everyone followed me clearly. And you can go, we have an automated calculator at actioninvest.org/engage. I'm going to ask my IT team in the background to please put that in the comment box as well, so that you can go play around with the calculator yourself as well to see what's happening in your organization. So let's say you have a smaller organization, just 30 people working in your organization. It means that you have about 5.5 highly disengaged employees. And let's say you pay them the same 150. It means that in an organization with about 30 employees, your cost is about 3.3 million. That's going to waste. And the last time I did this, someone told me, in my organization, we pay a lot more. So we also have an example here where people work for about 300,000 per month. Because the good thing is that salaries keep going up as well. And especially the newer companies that are coming in Guyana, they're driving up the salaries also. So in that case, a disengaged employee actually costs the organization 1.2 million. And in such an organization, the cost of disengagement is actually $11 million. And why am I calculating this for you? Is that if you're losing this money and you're not dealing with the problem, this money keeps leaving the organization constantly. If you deal with the problem, you have the possibility of not just saving that money, but increasing it by having more highly engaged people. And you can see here an example of a pre-program survey. This is before we would have worked with the organization in week 1, where this organization is actually in a really good position with half of the people being highly engaged and just about 12% actively disengaged. And over 12 weeks, getting to a point where 100% of the participants were highly engaged. And I'll play a quick video for you to get a sense of what's happening globally with this program.
The heart of a company are the people. And the only way you get to grow a company is through knowing the people that you're working with and what makes them tick, what makes them excited, how do you get them engaged?
We found the Engage and Grow program to be an extremely useful platform for troubleshooting organizational dynamics. behaviors within the organization that inhibit growth and alignment. It was a very successful program for our team in that it helped us break down a lot of the silos and barriers between the various departments to help us to collaborate and troubleshoot some of the challenges within the organization, as well as to help us align ourselves towards one common corporate goal.
We have a team that is now fully engaged, and quite frankly, my challenge is how do I keep them going? How do I keep the momentum going?
What I saw it do in 12 weeks, we have not been able to do for probably about 5 or 6 years. It allowed us to take 12 different personalities at a table and align them all towards a common goal of growing the company. It allowed us to invite those persons who were coming up as successors for our roles and introduce them to a new way of thinking.
These past 12 weeks with our fantastic coach, Marcel Winjoy, have been a real eye-opener for me. If I was to sum up the program in one word, I would say it has taught me to care. It has given me insight into my colleagues, made me think about my approach to work, my approach to interaction.
How you interact with your family, how you interact with your friends. It really plays an important role in your life.
We have learned so much about not only the various departments of the company, but also from our individual co-workers. And it has helped us to appreciate the process and each other.
I would heartily recommend the Engage and Grow program as a necessary ingredient in any organization wishing to improve its organizational effectiveness and efficiency.
You don't need to be too big. You don't need to be too small to start something like Engage and Grow.
We are now far more confident that this team will deliver.
So that is a little bit of a program that was done in Jamaica for you to get the sense of what's possible. Now, how does the program work? It focuses first on the neurological motivators. So what causes people internally to be able to take some action? So people respond to pain, people don't want pain, people want pleasure, people move towards reward, they move away from punishment. Some people are very self-directed. I think everyone attending here this afternoon is very focused on self-improvement. You have a high need for self-improvement. And then there are also some people who are just, transcendent purpose. Why am I placed on earth? And then we have the core human needs. So people have a need for love. People have a need for variety, a need for growth. And also, how do we understand and learn the quickest? Right? And if we go back to our caveman days when there was no school, there was no CXC, there was no university, the way of learning was around the campfire by stories and demonstration and experience. That is the way we learned, and that is still wired within our reptilian brain. And again, these are some of the techniques that are used to make sure that people really get that type of behavioral improvement that we all need for ourselves and for our organizations. Because there are only two serious ways to change, right? You can go get hypnotized and have someone kind of play around with your brain, or repetition and reprogramming. So constantly doing something causes you to build a new habit, right? Because everything you do today in your mind, those neural pathways are like highways, right? So you quickly go down that path. Whereas if you want to build a new habit, little by little, you actually have to make sure that you keep running. Imagine it's like a little track, right? A goat track, if you can call it like that. We have to keep running on it until it turns so broad like a highway so that we have a new habit. So it needs to be done over and over again. That's why, one-off trainings don't have that long-term impact that we generally look for. I did mention that, the critical area in the organization is the hard side of the business, because once you fix the hard side of the business, become 8 times more successful. And this was a study done by Deloitte again. And you know this as well. I'm sure that when you go around people, you can sense the people who are really down and out, and you can sense the people who have a ton of energy, a ton of excitement about life, very proactive, and the difference between those two. And we sometimes think it's luck, but it's not luck. It's the engagement of your heart and spirit in what you do. So again, I'm going to ask you to take a snapshot here. It might be very useful to you, because this is how we can determine if the ingredients exist for a highly engaged, not just virtual team, but a highly engaged team in general. So does your organization have a process for skills development? Right? So people, when they enter your organization, do we on a frequent basis see what skills need to be developed, and we provide the training that is needed? And I'm going to ask you to score yourself. So red is poor, right? Not done. Yellow means it needs some work. We're doing some training, but we need to really step it up. And green is going great. Skills development, yes, everybody's constantly being trained and stepped up and really improving all the time. Feedback. Is there a feedback mechanism in your organization, and either direct or anonymous? Because many people say, well, my door is open, but what if you're the one that I have a problem with? Do I really want to come through your door? Or what if I think that you're friends with the person who I want to come and talk to you about? Right? So do you have a direct feedback mechanism, and do you also have an anonymous feedback mechanism? Maybe a box in an area where someone can type something out and drop it into, a phone number of a third party. We provide that service for several organizations as well in Guyana, where if something is going wrong, people can call us. We analyze what the situation is, and in many cases, we go and we talk to a number of people so that by the time we provide our recommendations, no one knows where the input came from. Benchmarking. Are you benchmarking your organization against other organizations like you? And sometimes we sit in our organizations and we think, oh, wait, everything is fantastic. We're going beautifully. Couldn't be better. But if I compare you to a similar organization in Trinidad or in Canada or in Suriname, you're far behind. Right? And what happens if one of those organizations comes and decides to start competing here with you? So benchmarking is very important. And even if you're an NGO, benchmark yourself against similar NGOs elsewhere and see what they're able to produce as opposed to what you're able to produce. Is there a culture and environment where trust and open communication exists? Do people actually trust each other? Can they say what they need to say without having to look over their back and to look at who's around before they speak? Is there accountability? Do we remove words like plenty, few, more, could, should, and are we actually very serious about what needs to be delivered in the organization? When people say they will do something, do they actually do it when they say they were going to be able to do it? Is your organization solution focused? Does everyone always talk about a problem, or do they bring solutions to the problem? And remember, you're scoring yourself all the time. So in the aspect of leadership, is the leader and the entire organization very clear on what the vision and the values are for this organization? Do they know where it's going, and do they know how they're going to get there? And then for the leaders in the organization, are they actively involved in personal development? Right? Leadership as a course by itself is not, other than us, I don't think anybody else really focuses on developing leaders. Around the world, there are different options. But leadership development is constant. We've gone from autocratic leadership to democratic leadership to servant leadership to transformational leadership, and I'll touch a little bit on it after. But different types of leadership is needed for different kind of situations. But if you just think that because your name is manager that you're now the leader, then you would be sadly mistaken, because there's a lot of principles and a lot of knowledge and a lot of practice goes into becoming a really good leader. And then recognition. Does your organization actually recognize the people who deliver above and beyond? So if you were to take a look at this particular schematic here, you would actually have now marked off where you think you're doing great. Well, fantastic, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to see some areas that need work, but then we're also going to see some areas that are in red. And then we have to prioritize, okay, where do we want to get started this quarter? Right? In this example here, let's say we assumed, okay, we'll get started with solution focused first because that's a big red area. We don't do anything about it. And then we'll move on to recognition. Right? And that is exactly what the program, an employee engagement program, is seeking to achieve. Now, very similar to Action Coach with our 6 steps for a highly structured business that can deliver the results, we also have a 6 steps to employee engagement. And it starts off with, evaluating what's going on in the organization so that we can really get the buy-in, so that people feel like equals, right? If people don't feel that they can talk to each other, it's going to be very difficult to achieve buy-in. Once people feel that they're equal, they've bought in, there's a collective accountability, then people can start, building that unity, developing meaningful connections, and people stop having all this misalignment that I'm here for this purpose, you're there for that purpose. We understand why the organization exists and why we are all here and how we can all contribute to that direction. Then we move on to engagement, moving from people feeling, positive about the organization to having trust in where the organization is going so that they can really deliver high performance. And then people can start living their truth. Why am I here? What is the best version of myself? How can I really develop myself and contribute more on a continuous basis so that there's growth for me, but there's also growth for other people in the organization and the organization. So once you understand that particular path, and again, I'm just going to go back to that slide for a second. This is the methodology that we follow. What's going on, and then to get it to a point that people are actually ready to grow with the organization. Now, a simple question we would usually ask people is, what's the number one thing? What's the biggest thing we can do to make this place the best place to work? So I'm going to ask you to make a note as well, and maybe tomorrow when you go back to work, or even I'm sure that many of you have WhatsApp groups. Send a message in the WhatsApp group asking your portions, your people, what is the number one thing that we could do to make our organization the absolute best place to work? And look at those responses, and I can guarantee that if you were to sort out those responses and to see if they are more about the brain side of the business or the heart side of the business, you'll get the kind of result like this here. People will tell you, well, we need to communicate better. We need to recognize our top performance. We need to really connect with our customers. Motivation is low. We need to step up that. You will find, I can guarantee you, just ask that question, and you will see that the portions of your organization are going to come back to you, and most of the things that they will come back with are heart related, telling you that the heart of your business, the heart of your organization may be failing right now. And you either, start getting fit and taking care of your heart, because getting a heart transplant is not the easiest thing for someone and some organization to really go through. Now, once we have determined that it is the heart side of the organization that needs help, then we work on the engagement keys. And you'll notice that we have over 20-something engagement keys, but some of them that are used very frequently are, what is the culture that we want in this organization, and how will we actually live the culture? How do we recognize others? How do we actually share lessons and stories that help other people grow? How do we teach people to chair meetings? How do we give them that responsibility? How do we get them to connect with our clients and other stakeholders? So depending on your organization and what is needed, a program is then developed with the keys that will allow you to unlock that hard side of the business. And of course, it's measured. I know that you doesn't make sense investing into a program if it is not measured. And when people have commitments that they made to the team, it is then checked on a weekly basis. And in week 1, you may have some people who actually follow up on their commitments and some who don't. If they follow, it's a green. If they don't, it's a red. And that's when peer pressure starts kicking in week after week, where people really start understanding that if one single portion doesn't do what they committed, the entire team scores red. Right? So the outcome of just one portion missing out, the entire team goes red. Then people start understanding how much they depend on each other, and they start helping each other and holding each other accountable to really get to a point where there's a high level of engagement. So in these programs, by the middle of the program, there's already significant improvement, because the heart of the business, the heart of the organization is then actually addressed in order to get the result that we're really looking for. And even if we're working with 6-7 portions in a group, those 6 or 7 people will again in turn impact a whole ton of other people, the co-workers, the employees, the suppliers, and that spreads. That really spreads. And you can have situations where there's a very little, small amount of highly engaged people, and within a 12-week period, moving the entire organization to highly engaged, very highly engaged. This is Coach Indy from Trinidad, and this is actually, I believe, Massey Gas. And what they really wanted to do was improve staff engagement, having their team operate more collaboratively, and increase profit and sales. And they were very gracious to share their results with us from people being just disengaged. Everybody did what they needed to do, and in 12 weeks, more than half of the team becoming highly engaged. And I would like to share with you a little video as well on their experience.
Well, since the program started, this team that I manage was fairly new and didn't know each other. So we still in that storming, norming type of space. And what we've seen since then, since we did the program over the last 3 months, was a significant change in the quality of conversation and a significant change in the relationship developed between the members of the team. The participation level, the trust, and at the end of the day, a real caring showing up in the team. For me personally, it's made my job easy because the collaboration that you now see among the team members means that I have less to do with the day-to-day operational issues that I had to get involved in before. And you're seeing a lot more of that internal collaboration among the teams and a genuine trying to solve problems without me having to get involved. So it's made my job easier. For the way the program is structured, it can only benefit the organization and it can only benefit the people because it's around the people's development, first of all. Second of all, know that it requires participation. So lead by example, right? So if you are deciding to do this, recognize that you have to dedicate of yourself and you have to give of yourself to lead by the example that you are trying to foster in the team. And every success will come after that.
So very important to know that this is the type of program that is not just for the employees to do. The leaders have to get involved as well, because they say, I've never tested this out, something to test out. They say the fish rots from the head, and we can't continue to, as leaders, to think that it's somebody else who has to improve, not me. Let's send them to a training, or it has to be something with them. You have to realize that in order for things to improve, I must first improve. I must participate. So very key to know. These type of programs are always started with a pre-program survey to figure out what's going on right now. And surveys like this, you can check around with consultants, 50,000, 100,000, 500,000 for a survey to be done in your organization to figure out, what's happening right now. And this is where leadership is really key as well, because many leaders are afraid to actually see on black and white what's happening in their organization to see what their numbers look like. So if you're a leader that has, some amount of um, courage, some amount of openness, transparency, integrity, you actually want to see what's going on, because you cannot improve what you do not measure. Right? I would encourage you strongly to get one of those surveys done. For companies in the program, we actually do a survey towards the middle of the program to figure out, okay, what's the progress being made to date? And then there's one done towards the end of the program as well to see, okay, great. What is the outcome now? What is the level that people are now engaged at? Now, there are many, many different engagement group activation programs to work with. The most popular one is actually the Red Belt program. And I'll give you some details on the Red Belt program very shortly. But there are also specific programs that are geared towards millennials. How do we get millennials more engaged? There's a program for women's leadership skills, for organizations that have primarily women, or even, women chambers of commerce. This really helps them to gel and develop their leadership skills. Then we have, for example, what we call the Leader of Leader program. So if you are a leader and you really want to step your game up, there's a program where we can work with you individually, or also in a small group of between 3 to 5 leaders. So that may also be something that would be of interest. And then the program does have its origin in sports. So if you do have, a sports team that really need to step itself up to the next level, we do have one of these programs that is still very tailored to really developing engagement in athletes to really step up to the next level. The Achievers Club is one that is run completely online. And so if we don't have a solution that we can't really work with portions within the organization, and I must tell you that we have started training again 2 weeks ago with small groups with all the requisite precautions in place, spacing of 6 feet, everybody's wearing a mask, sanitation being done, because some companies can't wait, right? They want to make sure that their people are really stepping up their game. So your options are, run a program so that you can really get the benefit of moving forward. And of course, everything you've learned today, I would encourage you to start putting it in place, start measuring what's happening. But if you do want to run a program is about 90 minutes per week maximum, could be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes per week. It is facilitated by a trained, engage, and grow coach. And it could be done individually if you are a leader that wants to step your game up, or in a group. It's all action, right? So very little pen and paper. People will be undergoing experiential learning. And it directly impacts, all the people in your organization, but also indirectly, the people you've impacted will start impacting other people. Now, the Red Belt program is 12 sessions, so 1 session per week. And if for those of you who want to do the math, it works out to about $6 or $7 per person per session. So if you want to do the mathematics, please go ahead. And it would be very important that you compare it with how much disengagement could be costing you right now. If the cost of the program is less than the cost of the disengagement, it's a no-brainer. And I must tell you, we've actually tested some of our own clients. We've surveyed some of our own clients who have been working, and there are some who are extremely highly engaged, and those are the companies that are doubling every year. So very interesting to see how important engagement is to growth, regardless of political situations, regardless of pandemics. Now, I wanted to share another quick video with you, and this is House of Angostura in Trinidad. Unfortunately, our Caribbean neighbors jump onto these programs that work much faster. So soon we'll have our own Guyanese examples as well. But in the meantime, they have jumped ahead, and they're getting fantastic results.
So my top 3 learnings from the Engage and Grow program with my finance team. The first one being really learning about the team, learning what each team member is passionate about, getting to know more about their personalities, and the things that really drive them, the things that they love to do, and how they feel about the team as well. Most of these team members have been here a much longer time than I have, so it was a great opportunity to learn about them individually. The second thing I think that was very valuable from the program was the roundtable feedback sessions. It helped us to be able to give each other feedback in a very positive, engaging way, in a very useful manner, a respectful manner. And I think we all learned how to deliver, what could be a tough message in a soft way. I think that's something that we will all benefit from as we continue to work together, because we're not always going to agree on everything, and we have to be able to have respectful, honest conversations with each other. And the last thing that I, really liked about the program, and what we learned about the program is really around the leadership acts, how we can commit to something that we believe in terms of behaviors, and then really show up and act and change our behaviors, and the leadership acts help us to do that. So those are the top 3 things for me.
So I'm just going to leave you with, what we see as today's new leader. And, when people get to a supervisory position or a management position, especially if they haven't built credibility, if they haven't connected on a heart-to-heart level with people, they can be very disliked. In some cases, they might be disrespected by people not following their instructions as well. And then you have them stepping up to more of a manager leader, where there is some level of buy-in to what they do, and people will follow if they have to. And once they start really getting people aligned, right, people know, okay, this is where the leader is taking us, and the leader themselves is stepping up and leading by example. They become respected leaders. Accomplished leaders have good results behind them, allowing for people to have a high level of trust in where this leader is taking them. And that's when they really actually start connecting with the hard side of things. What we're looking at is, becoming a stress-free leader. And those stress-free leaders, regardless whatever is happening to you, or if you are a stress-free leader, regardless of what comes to your doorstep, you know that there's a solution. You know that there's a solution to be able to help people to move along. And then, the pinnacle is really an intuitive leader. Intuitive leaders sense what's coming down the pipeline, work with their portions to keep innovating. So before problems even get generated, they've already generated solutions and they're way past where the problem could have affected them. And, there are companies like that in Guyana that, pandemic, politics, nothing stopped them, because they were so far ahead with already adopting technology, already figuring out how to serve people despite the situation. And those intuitive leaders do exist. And what we do want is that we have more and more stress-free and intuitive leaders in our society. Now, I did want to share some quick tips with you. So take a snapshot of these slides, especially if you need to really step up your leadership. But check on people's health, check on their safety, make sure that people have work-life balance. It is so easy for people to be at home and continue working past 5 o'clock, past 6 o'clock, cutting into their family time as well. So they may need you to, help them set some boundaries, help them reprioritize, help them to work better and smarter so they get more done in less time. Give them the information that they need. Watch out for burnout, right? And actually yesterday I was talking to a really good leader as well, and he noticed that someone was really overdoing it, and he prescribed some administrative leave to that person and said, take 2 days off. You're not allowed to do anything with work, right? Because I'm noticing that if I leave you going in this path, you'll burn out and you'll harm yourself, you harm the organization. Have one-on-one conversations with people often. I would say at least once a week. I make an effort to say good morning to everyone on my team every single day, so that I can see, where is their energy level at. And if I notice the energy level isn't where it needs to be, I'll do something or I'll ask someone else to do something about it. If you see challenges, acknowledge them and address them. You playing blind to the challenge doesn't mean the challenge went away. And the problem with planet Earth is that it's round. If you run away from the challenge, by the time you get back around to it, it's much bigger. And then you would wish that you had dealt with it when it was something small. Keep communicating. I don't think this is, the end of the pandemic. I think unless we find a miracle vaccine that could be scaled up fast enough, or some treatment that is 100% effective, we will still have to deal with it for the coming months. So be ready to address changes in a very rapid manner. Be clear with your expectations and provide consistent and meaningful feedback. And I'm not saying criticism, right? If you have to criticize, let it be constructive criticism. Don't say, this is a stupid report, or this report is not useful. Say what you think would have made it useful. What does the person need to do? Because that's the only way to build trust, by doing what is right. If you are one of the businesses that can now reopen, make sure that you actually have a checklist. And I again encourage you to take a snapshot of this if this is useful for you. Make sure that the offices are clean. Our offices, our buildings now have sinks on the outside, and with all. And don't put a sink outside there, because I had to go to some places last week. And yes, there is a sink outside, but there's no soap. There's no tissue for people to wipe their hands. So if you're going to do this thing, don't do it half-heartedly, because people will know when it's a half-hearted effort. And nobody builds trust in half-hearted efforts. And think about what your employees are worried about right now. Safety, their stability. For those that have kids right now, and public schooling, no schooling has restarted other than the smart schools right now. But even if your kids are attending a smart school, they're doing it from home. So how are you helping them with paying attention to their kids and the needs of their kids, and balancing that with work? Make sure that they have healthcare coverage as well. Be careful with isolation. If people don't get communicated with, they might feel like the organization is preparing to let go of them. And let them know their value, and that the job that they're doing with the organization is still important. So communication, I can't stress on that enough. Health and safety is going to become exponentially more important as the years go by in Guyana. And hold your people accountable. Now, I did mention that I would have provided a free gift to each one of you here today. And all you need to do, I'll put up the email just now. Send us an email, and what we will do is we will arrange a complimentary employee engagement survey for your organization. This particular time, it is, we have already invested in the software. We're using it with many organizations that are coming to us. I think many more leaders, many more organizations need to know what is really going on in their organizations, and therefore we're offering you this as a complimentary gift. And again, you can call around, find out what it costs to do a survey, and you'll understand the value of this gift. The nice thing with this survey, it takes the employee anywhere between 60 seconds to maximum 2 minutes to complete the survey. Very simple, very easy to use. It is anonymous, so even if you were to ask me who said what, because trust me, I have been asked by CEOs and owners and HR managers, well, tell me who said this thing here. So I had to tell them, are you happy that you actually know what people think now, or what do you want to do? Do you want to go and be vindictive to that portion? Or are you happy that you now know what is happening so you can do something about it? And this plays again to the maturity of leadership and within the organization. And another thing I should probably tell you now, whoever requests the survey and whoever the organization authorizes, that's the only portion who gets the results of the survey. And it is their responsibility to share it in the organization. We will never go into the organization and share it and say, hey, this is what's happening. It's only the portion who requests, the senior portion who requests the survey will have that. Now, it's important to understand as well that, the world, your organization is really in your hands. And you can either decide to play blind and do as if you don't see what's happening in your organization. Or if you're the leader, you can say, okay, great, I need to do something about this. I can't wait for, my replacement or the next person to come fix it. It does depend heavily on what I do. If you're not the leader, I would strongly encourage you, get a recording of this particular session, send it to the leader and say, sir, ma'am, please watch this. I think we need it to this organization. If I could have done it myself, I would have done it myself. I'm asking you to do something that will help this organization be a happier and a healthier place to work in. Now, I'm going to open it up for any questions and answers. So I do see some private comments coming in to me. Fantastic. Right, so if there are any questions, please send your questions in the comments box. And I'm going to check to see if you have any questions. In the meantime, I want you to realize that we really do want not just that your fishes, your employees have a cleaner, larger bowl, but also that it can grow and that you can hire more employees, that there is so much more scope for the organization to grow. And that's what I really want to help you, and that's what our team really wants to help you with. Thank you very much, Gary. So I did mention a second gift as well. So the first gift is that I'm going to ask as well. Normally, I don't publish my own email address, but in this case, I will, because of confidentiality, you will know that you've sent me an email directly. So if you ever hear anything said outside, you know that I wasn't acting in a confidential manner. So you do have my email. You email me directly so that I can arrange to set up the survey for you. And the only information I need from you is the name of the company and the number of employees. Right? I only need the name of your organization and the number of employees. And then we will generate a link, and you just send that link, and it will not ask your employees for their name or their email addresses, but it has a specific time frame. Very easy. You'll be amazed by how easy the process is. It's simple, it's easy, it's even fun to see how the results coming. The second gift is that once we see that there is room for improvement, we will offer you a complimentary 90-minute leadership planning session. Right? If it comes back and it's all green, fantastic, that's our gift to you. We need to do nothing else. But if we see a high amount of red, so a high amount of disengagement, we'll offer you a complimentary leadership planning session to see, okay, great, what needs to happen here for you to save a ton of money on salaries, that might be wasted right now, and to really grow a happy, healthy, profitable workplace. You can also see the website, actioninvest.org/engage. If you want to go use the calculator to see how much employee disengagement is currently costing you, that again is also free of cost. You can go and see what this is costing you at the moment. Great, so I'm seeing a lot of thank yous coming in. It's my pleasure. I know my team is also constantly educating the public, letting people know what's available, sharing principles. If you need the support, reach out. We do want to work with serious business owners, serious executives, serious managers who really want to shift their organization forward. If you're not serious as yet, that's fantastic. Hold on a bit. When it gets more competitive, I'm sure that we may have some space then to work with you. But what we need at the moment It's just very serious organizations, serious leaders who want to move their organizations forward. We want to focus on them because we know that when we work with them, the results are just mind-blowing. I'm sure that everyone got a lot of clarity today. I'm getting very insightful. Great job. So thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you very much for your attendance today. You can also see our phone number there. You can see our phone number there. You can always call into the office. Our coaches commit about 4 hours per week that we use to help persons figure out what the room for improvement is. So you may be able to benefit from a complimentary session with the coach as well once we figure out what's happening in the organization. Right. People are very happy that they participated, very instructive, very good. So guys, that was my time today with you. I'm happy that you invested the time in yourself as well to really step up your game, your leadership game, and to really do something positive for your organization. If you're seeing this video anywhere else, please make sure that you share it so more people can understand the concept of employee engagement and what can be done. Right? And what can be done. So reach out, and I thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions that come to mind, drop them into the comments box, and I'm sure that my team or I will be able to address them. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic rest of the week. Take care and stay very safe.
Our world is an employee engagement crisis. Only 13% of employees are engaged in the global workforce, causing dramatic effects in any organization. Your organization can expect a more engaged workforce, improved productivity, an enriched culture, and increased profit. Engage and Grow is not your traditional training company. Training is dead. We're challenging the norm with everything we do, and our customers like it. All programs are individually designed by the Engage and Grow team, enabling you to facilitate the highest quality, tailor-made programs, improve communication skills, create deeper relationships, and foster a caring, social, and cooperative attitude. Our coaching will improve leadership qualities and build solid trust between employees, encouraging innovative thinking and proactive future planning. Engage and Grow will refocus, re-energize, and re-engage your employees, and we have tangible methods to measure the results. Our workforce engagement, leadership effectiveness, women's leadership, and engaging the millennial programs will create movement in the mind of employees and your business, creating a movement that will take your company as an empowered team into the future. Bring the gusto back into your organization. Engage and grow.